Do you know how to raise your vibes? And do you know when you raise your vibes, you also expand your intuition? Hello, this is Angelscapes, and I'm your host, Nancy Smith. And join me in this session for a talk about personal vibrations and intuitive living. And have you been wondering how you can bring up your vibration? How can you energize your own body? And what does that mean? How can you feel more lively and have a sense of well being? Why are you hearing oftentimes, but you will hear you're not alone, especially from me, but why are you hearing that, but you're just not feeling it?
Welcome to the Angelscapes podcast, where you're encouraged to uncover and develop a direct connection with your soul's power, wisdom, and spiritual intuition that is ready to blossom. We'll explore new ideas, compelling tips, and real steps to help you learn simple spiritual practices. We're a safe place to learn more about accessing your soul's power with education and spiritual wholeness that could bring more clarity to your life. Now here's your host, a practicing medium, Akashic Records practitioner, spirit artist, coach, and mentor, Dr. Reverend Nancy Smith.
Welcome again. I'm recording this podcast the first week of May. And while spring is coming on in full force, it can be exhilarating, it can be exhausting, but it also is a time where we blossom from inside, those of us who are in northern climates, where we see a big weather change, or where things that are sleeping are now waking up. The flowers are very brilliant right now, coming out of, and the greens are just fantastic, just coming out of the trees and out of the ground and out of everywhere. And during this time, I'm reminded, and all of us are reminded, to get lively, or to feel the growth within ourselves. We're coming out just a little warmer. We're coming out outdoors more often. But I also know we're all having, many of us are having allergic reactions, and we're just feeling exhausted. Springtime is an exhausting time of the year too, as well, because there's more, the lights change, the vibration in the whole neighborhood is changing, and we're getting used to it, and it's putting us to bed early. So um when I talk about the five languages of your soul, how your soul communicates to you, the first language is about feeling your feelings. And springtime reminds me about feeling my feelings, because I've been laying dormant along with the trees, along with everything else during the winter. I kind of extra, quiet times, or extra putting my feet up, or of course, we all feel our feelings no matter what the season. But the exhilaration, or the shift that happens in the springtime, changes the feelings. And what are your feelings changing into? What are you feeling right now? So we're not even halfway through 2024, and we've had some big influences spinning around us. And this 2024 is turning out to be quite a transitional year. Just watch the news, or just look at your life, and the things that are showing up that haven't been there in a while. I'm sure all of you are seeing this a little bit. And those things also affect our vibration. They can raise our vibration, or they can bring it down, depending on how we think about it, depending on how we look at it. Um, so what I want to do is really talk to you about your vibration, and how your vibration affects your intuition, and how you are in charge of your own vibration. You can affect whether your vibration goes up, or whether it drops. I talk a lot about the 4-step pathway to access soul power living. And it's really about waking up to your own self, to your own feelings. It's about getting those juices running so that you can blossom into whatever you are doing. And the 4 steps, I've gone over them with you many times before, but this is going to lead to something a little bit new. The first is taking time to feel your feelings and acknowledge how you really feel, not how you're supposed to feel, not what you should be feeling, not the edited version of your feelings and emotions, without self-judgment. Simply acknowledge how you really feel. It's a beautiful day out and I just want to take a nap. Or it's a beautiful day out and I don't want to work anymore. Or I'm feeling sad, happy, whatever it is you're feeling, when you acknowledge how you feel, you begin to feel safe within yourself because you're listening to yourself. And who else will listen to you that closely? Sometimes we don't listen to ourselves that closely, but when we do listen and sense into where we are, we raise our vibrations. We step into a process that begins to give us a sense of well-being in our lives. So when we feel safe within ourselves because we're listening to our feelings, we begin to become a little more creative in our choices and our thoughts. It's easier to be positive. It's easier to look on the the brighter side of life, even if you're acknowledging that you're feeling kind of down and you're just loving yourself for that, paying attention to that. You begin to find or think of a way to nurture yourself, to care for yourself, because now you're aware, your eyes are on you. So that creative thinking and living begins to blossom when you feel your feelings. And then when that creative thinking and living, new choices, new ways of subtly spending time in a different direction leads to a state of being in the present moment, being alive, being in the present moment, being alive, being well-being begins to grow, intuition begins to pop in there a little bit more. And it's tricky how it's really interesting how that really does work. So try it out when you're feeling creative and you're in the present moment and you're doing things. You're in a state of being, and when you're in a state of being, that's when everything happens. Is in the now. We heal in the now. We make our choices that lead to our future in the now. We can't do anything about our future while we're just sitting on the couch. But as we create, as we love ourselves, as we respond to ourselves, we're creating a well-being that can move forward. And also being in the moment and being creative and really paying attention to what's going on. We're not thinking of the past. We're not dwelling on the past. We were maybe using tools and gifts and learnings from the past, but as we implement it now, it becomes alive and it becomes strong and powerful. So you come into a state of feeling alive in the present moment. And when you are feeling alive in the present moment, you're taking care of yourself, you're paying attention to how you feel, and you're making different choices, then you begin to recognize a connection to the flow of life. And life is a flow. The energy around us, the vibrations around us, all of nature, it's a flow of energy going in and out and up and down. And when you're in the present moment and you're curious and you feel connected, you can also go with the flow. It's not a roller coaster ride. It's a state of unfoldment. Big difference than things happening to you and be up and down with your emotions. So when you're in a state of unfoldment, you're in a state of high creativity, and that's soul powered living. That's what really being awake and aware. So I had this really wonderful experience the other weekend that reminded me of being awake and aware in a whole new way, or in a way that I hadn't experienced in a while. I was decided to go away to a spiritual retreat, and there are three different mediums. One was a regular old medium, mental mediumship. One was a trance medium, and the other one was a spirit artist. I have not really had a deep study with a spirit artist. I've had classes maybe here and there, but I've never really talked to a spirit artist in depth and watched her work over a period of 3 days with a group of people. And it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. And it was absolutely wonderful being a student, to watch somebody teach, but also to be next to all these other people who are also experiencing spirit art, some of them for the first time. Absolutely not my first time, but it was fun to be in those shoes. And one of the things she asked us to do was just to close our eyes, and on paper, we all had paper. Everything we did was on paper with either charcoal or pencil, was to just close our eyes and maybe just start with arcing circles and just go where, and then invite spirit in to come in and work through you. And whatever happens, let your pencil go in that direction. And so we all, at the end of all of this, we all had something on the paper. And when everybody had something on the paper that they had a feeling connection to, that they also had a message connection to. And the person sitting next to me, the gentleman sitting next to me, presented his work. We all had to present our work to the class, presented his work. He goes, I didn't know what I was doing, but I just kept drawing these lines coming down. And then all of a sudden they started feeling like trees. And I started to think of nature, and I could smell the dirt, or I could hear the frogs. I guess he had frogs that he was talking about, the birds, the sense of feeling of nature. And as he was talking about the nature, this woman walked out of the forest and presented herself to him. She was a spirit who passed on, and she the descriptions he made from her fit a friend of mine who I hadn't heard from in a long time, and I was wondering what happened and was missing her. I knew she had passed, and it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful to feel that connection and see the drawing, and it made sense when I looked at the drawing, and that was an awareness and an opening for me that I hadn't thought of or had felt in a while. And the message was stepping out into nature. Spirit and God and the creator speak through nature. I guess they say as above, so below, but what we see in nature, we also, if you have anything you got to figure out and you're not quite sure what it is, go out in nature and observe, and let your body, mind, and spirit remember the flow, remember, and then that'll nurture you back into that soul power living, that pathway that I just talked about. So as I recognized her, and as I understood the message of reconnecting to nature and to the flow, I could see that I needed to do that. There were tears welling up in my eyes. And what a beautiful, beautiful message. The spirit artist was from Scotland. Her name was Josephine Mackenzie, just a lovely, lovely woman who had many stories to tell in many different ways, that she brought us all into experiencing spirit through just drawing. And I love to have students and teach them. I have mediumship and art class that I teach pretty regularly, and watching the students connect to spirit through the physicality of drawing is phenomenal. But being able to be a student brought me back to my feeling, how I really feel about stuff, how I really felt about my own work. And this is what I'm inviting you in this session is to kind of take a look at what is it that you need to invite yourself back into, or allow yourself to be in, to remind yourself of what you love and who you are authentically, how you want to express yourself. The other thing that's going on is the dandelions are coming out, and those bright yellow dandelions, as the grass is getting greener and greener. And I can't believe watching it. It's just this unfolding right in front of me. And I always think that's kind of a miracle. I was sick for most of the month of April, so I wasn't really noticing some of the subtle changes that was going on because I was too busy having a headache and a sore throat. But as things began to clear up, I really started to see how the green was changing, and how the dandelions were going from that brilliant yellow, the sun, to moving into that little puff ball, the moon, and then blowing all the seedlings out, which were the stars. And I just love that. And that brought me back to another connection, and through my feelings of nature and my fantasies and my just my wonderment about, since I was a little girl, just wow, isn't that so cool? And just would wonder about these dandelions. Sometimes I'd pick a bunch of dandelions and make a little chain or something like that, get dandelion gunk all over my fingers. But that was such a fun thing to do. And again, accentuating your feelings, paying attention to how you really feel, and allowing yourself that expression in that moment in time, where you're not pushing it off, you're not or postponing it, or just minimizing it, when you're really feeling those feelings, whether, no matter what they are, positive and negative, and loving yourself and enjoying yourself brings you back to that state of being. And in that state of being, I have to say, I tried this thing out. When we wake up into a state of being, we start to see what's around ourselves. We start to see the things we haven't put away, or the things we left out, or the things that we haven't noticed in a long, long time. And as I talk to you, I want you to kind of look around where the room or the car, wherever you are listening to this, and see if you can notice things that you haven't looked at in a really long time. They've been there for a long, long time, but you haven't thought about them. You haven't put your attention to them for whatever reason. And as you notice these things, I want you to pay attention to how you feel about them and how you feel and what's the message that they're telling you, or what is the message that your feelings are telling you. Sometimes we leave things behind or we don't put things away because we're going to pick it up later on. So our unconscious mind says, "Oh, I'll just leave it there," and then we forget about it. Sometimes our subconscious mind says, "She's not done with that," or "He's not done with that." We're going to leave it out. And so our subconscious mind has not her aware mind, it doesn't realize it's happening, but our subconscious and our spirit can leave something out, or can or there's a message in there. Like, for instance, that you haven't looked at the clock in the living room for a long time and it needed to change batteries about 6 months ago, and now you're noticing, oh, and you're feeling guilty or sad and say, "Time ran out." Just feel it, just take it in, because this is a message that you've left for yourself. And when you listen to those messages that you left for yourself, they're real. The struggle is real. Spirit also comes in and tacks on a part of that message or a deeper understanding of that message. And it can blossom into something very powerful and good, no matter you're feeling guilty, sad, or excited, or, "Oh, geez, I shouldn't have forgotten that." Um, One of the other things that I like to do when I'm talking to spirit is I like to ask for signs and synchronicities. Let me know you're here by showing me this particular sign. And cherries is one of the things that I like to find. Well, especially when I'm making a decision or when I have a lot of things on my mind. Am I going in the right direction? Show me a cherry for this. And what was hilarious is that I was looking around the living room, kind of, what am I telling myself in this? Um, and not in the mess. My living room's not a mess, but what am I telling myself in these oddball things that are in my living room? And I had a workout mat that I had folded up neatly. It was getting a little dusty, and I felt, oh yeah, I gotta do that. I really gotta use that mat. And no wonder I'm feeling so stiff. And then I looked around and there were some blankets that I just hadn't used all winter, because it was not because I didn't like them, but it was time for them to go. So I felt this sense of releasement. It's time for me now, as spring is here, to let things go. And I was feeling this nostalgia. And then I was looking over to a little table by the sofa where I still had some of my cold remedies out. And I said, "Oh boy, that looks like an old lady's been living here for a while," but it was my cold remedies um, were there. And I said, I guess it's time to put them away. I'm not coughing as much. I said, "Well, sometimes I cough a little. It's nice to have that there." I picked up the cough drop box, and there was this little cherry right on the cover. Of course, all my cough drops are cherry, but there was that cherry, and I said, "Oh." And I got the message from Spirit that you've had the answer all along. She's been sitting right next to you. Just now it's time for you to see it and take it in. And not another tearful moment of, "I get it. I see this. I get it." And I see that you've helped me leave these messages around. I hope you're understanding what I'm saying, that when we talk to ourselves from the past or unconsciously, if we can let Spirit talk through those things as well, we are doing ourselves a favor. We're really seeing that we're not alone. Spirit is working through our unconscious self, as well as our unconscious self, meaning the ego, or the "I'm not paying attention to this," or "I have all these negative thoughts or positive thoughts." Our spirit can talk through those unconscious thoughts, as well as all of the subconscious, higher conscious thoughts. How you feed yourself, "Oh, this room is a mess," or you don't notice things, or you're just running through things um, quickly, and I'll just leave. I'll get back to that later. Or, "I don't want to see this. I'm too busy. I'm too busy," which I do all the time. And I know that we all have a busy world. We don't let Spirit in, but when we slow down and just look around us and feel our way around ourselves, and not judge ourselves, we do open the door for our intuition to begin to show up and speak to us. And when our intuition opens up and begins to speak to us, of course, spirit speaking right there with our intuition. So winter feels like a time of things hiding, of life hiding. And spring feels like a time of things making themselves known. The Japanese plum trees are beautiful and purple. The magnolias are coming out and it's saying, look at me in all my beauty. I am here. I've been hidden away all winter. And this is an invitation. Now I'm repeating myself. I understand that, for us to think positively, to begin to notice around ourselves what we've left behind. I remember laughing every time we didn't have much of snow this season here in New England, but we've had very snowy seasons, and especially when my kids were little, the snow would come and I was going to go pick up those toys in the yard, but they didn't get picked up. So the snow melts and go, oh my gosh, there it is. It's been in the yard the whole time. We've been looking all over the house for whatever it was. And in this time, as our busyness melts away and we become aware in a different way, maybe we can uncover some things that we left behind in the winter months and forgot to nourish ourselves with them. And as we nourish ourselves, guess what? Our intuition says, hey, I'm here helping you. And then you're not feeling so alone, because our intuition is always telling us that our soul's there, that our spirit's there, that there's another message, another thought. And I want to talk a little bit more about the Akashic work that I do and the 5 languages of your soul. And I don't want to talk about the 5 languages. I want to talk about the first language, the first hearing. And I think sometimes spring is like we're hearing for the first time. I don't know why it feels like that. We're seeing things for the first time. We've seen spring before, especially at my age. We've seen spring all kinds of times, but there's a new vibration. And we can allow that vibration to come in. And then the first language of our soul comes from our inner voices that we could now start to hear. When you go onto my website, there's called the 7 Steps to Soul Power Living. Go ahead and go onto angelscapes.net and click on it, and you can sign up and download its beautiful little PDF. And pretty soon there's going to be another mini workshop on my website called the 5 Languages of Your Soul. And it's a great little workshop that really talks to you about using those subtle energies and being aware of those subtle energies as being communications from your higher self to yourself. Sometimes it's just yourself to yourself. Hey girl, wake up, or hey guy, wake up. And sometimes it's a message from your most higher power. So the first language of the soul comes from your inner voice. And we hear our inner voice when we feel our feelings, just like I talked about earlier. Feel your feelings and find your inner voice and listen. That's how you reconnect to your aware self. And that's when you put yourself in charge of how you're feeling. I'm not talking about in charge so that you can control it or put it under the water again, submerge it. And that's not what we're talking about. When we feel our feelings, we're inviting them to show themselves. But when we're inviting them from our aware selves, we're not allowing them to take over. Instead, we're opening up the hood of the car and we're looking, what's been in my engine? What's been driving me all this time? If I really feel this way about that, what do I know about myself now? And where can I heal? Where can I develop now? And oftentimes our feelings that we feel aren't actually the root feelings of our lives. They're reactions to the root feelings. So if we're feeling anxious or frustrated or we're feeling kind of grouchy, that sometimes those feelings, the reactions, but they're not telling us the core. So we have to lift up those feelings and say, what else is under there? And then get another set of reactions. What else is under there until we get to the core issue, which is, I'm just making this up. It's time to change, and it's difficult to change. And who wants to change? That kind of thing. And so now we're in our aware self and we're feeling all the feelings around anxiety around change or grouchiness around changing, or what is it that it's time to change? I don't know what it is that we need to change. Let's find out, because maybe I think what I have to change isn't what I have to change at all. Maybe it's something actually wonderful, but I've been so adverse to changing that I have all of these reactions that are hiding this truth from me. And change could be as simple as I need to paint my bedroom. I can't stand this color anymore versus there are some steps that I need to take in my life to help me feel better, go for more walks, go to the gym, or I have to make a phone call to those people that I care about so much. I really do miss them. And it's time for me to step out of my quietness and reach out and love the people that love me. And we've been hidden away from each other in winter for too long. And it's time for us to come out and remind each other that we love each other and that we care about each other. That's a big change because it's safe being alone. It's safe being snuggled up or boarded up in the house in our world. And the change is we need to reach out. We need to be connected to life again. So that is beginning the first language of your soul, is to feel your feelings. And then that inner voice, once you get to the root of the feeling, that inner voice starts to speak. And that's the voice of your intuition. It's also the voice of your soul. And so when we listen to the voice of our soul, it's not going to take us to the wrong path at all. Our soul always knows what to do. It's going to very gently wake up our aware self and find that place of well-being, saying this isn't the place of well-being, but that's the place of well-being. Just a little bit to the left and down, go straight for a little bit and then turn right again and you're in. You've got it. And we wouldn't know to go in that direction if we weren't listening to that inner intuitive voice that's really taking in that soul's wisdom. And it's about the aware self isn't in our head. It isn't in our emotions, it's in our heart. And our heart is our wisdom center. So when we are in our aware self, we're in our wisdom center. So when we're in our wisdom center, we're not necessarily going to go in the wrong direction. We're going to listen, we're going to think, we're going to not necessarily react, but we're going to see what's on the table or see what's in front of us, and we're going to take each piece one at a time and begin to create something new in our lives. But you can't create something new in your life if you're still reacting, because reacting has to do with the past. And reacting has to do with the past fear that stops us from going into the future. We're not going to go into the future if we don't step into the present moment. We can live our past over and over again, and then years go by and we haven't been in the present moment once. We don't know why our life hasn't gone anywhere. You see how that works? So your aware self goes into your heart, and your heart wants you to learn, your heart wants you to grow, and your heart is very much connected to your soul. Your heart is like the bridge between your unconscious self that doesn't want to budge, doesn't want to move, and your soul, your higher power, your higher self. So your aware self connects your reluctant learners to inspiration. And that's how it works. We want that bridge within ourselves. So that's why being in your heart is so important, being heart-centered, not mind-centered, not logic-centered, but heart-centered. Because once the heart starts to feel it out, it begins to have a clear language about what these unspoken, unexpressed feelings are. It begins to see what there is to work with. We begin to know who we really are and where we're standing in the moment. So where we're standing in the moment may not reflect who we really are in a real concise, happy way. So maybe we need to take a few steps out of ourselves, but we wouldn't know where to go, what to do if we weren't in that aware, in that centered heart, in that aware heart. And then once we have the picture, once we have the wisdom, once we have the information, we program our brains with it. We send it right up to our brains. And it's like the eagle. We send it up to the eagle, say, go find more of this. Where's the pathway? Where's the opening of what I'm feeling inside of myself, of where we need to go, how we need to nurture ourselves. You see how that works? So it's in the shamanic tradition, it's the jaguar in the heart in our heart that tells us the truth. It takes all those things apart that were illusions that we've been fooling ourselves with, and it opens up the truth to us. And then once we have the truth, it's exciting, it's empowering, there's a sense of well-being, and we're working with our intuition, we're working with our soul, and then we send a real clear message up to our mind to say, this is where we're going, this is what we want to find, this is what we want to do. So that's a beautiful process. The aware process is what takes us into the present moment. for us to create some powerful foundations to build our life on. I know I've talked about this several times, but our emotions are energies in motion. They are messengers. They're not guides. They're not leaders. They're not making our decisions. They're not the wisdom center, but our emotions may live in the wisdom center, but they're giving us the message, whatever this message may be to, and if our aware self opens it up, then we have more of an opportunity to access that wisdom that is within our hearts. And when we access that wisdom that is within our hearts, we're also accessing our intuition, and we're also accessing our direct connection to our higher self, to our soul, and to our guides. When you reconnect to your aware self, you connect to so many things. You will hear your inner voice, and which is the voice of your soul, and you'll have less doubt on where's the next thing to go, or you'll have less doubt of how do I really feel about that? How do I really, what color do I really want? And what flavor do I really want to put on all over that ice cream, or whatever you're thinking, your aware self, as it connects to that really creative place within ourselves. Um, that's when we blossom. That's when spring shows up in our lives. That's when our vibration gets higher, gets louder, gets more clear. And when we're taking care of ourselves, I said, how do you enhance your intuition? How do you grow your intuition? Well, this is exactly how you grow your intuition: by caring for yourself, by loving yourself, which is the first step into raising your own personal vibration. And then once we care for ourselves and we love ourselves and begin to learn, I need to move forward more on this one, or I need to let this go, or I'm really thinking the wrong way and about this, and I can really think a better way on this. That's when the intuition steps in and starts to get more and more clear, more and more powerful, and there's less doubting. And that's when our soul, like I said, we can hear your soul much more clearly. Our soul always knows what to do. Our soul does not leave us, or our guides don't leave us. We leave them. I've heard that said many times by many different people. And it's time to reunite with your guides, with your soul, with source, so that you have the experience that you really aren't alone. I can tell you 1,000 times, but it's not going to mean anything to anybody unless you make those steps that make it real for yourself. Your unconscious self, and I really am reluctant to talk about it as an ego self, but it's a very complex part of ourselves, and it can take over at a heartbeat. And our unconscious self is about taking care of ourselves and keeping us on the straight and narrow, and helping us get out of bed in the morning when you don't really want to get out of bed, because your unconscious self will say, you know what, you don't get out of this bed, you're gonna have a lot to pay for later. And our unconscious self will keep us moving. But our unconscious self isn't necessarily interested and learning and growing. Our unconscious self feels like it has all the answers already, and it's going to tell us what the answers are so we can get the ultimate result, which is usually the same thing that we got every other time we did it. So sometimes we can get discouraged by saying, why am I putting all this effort to it? I'm getting the same thing that I used to get before. So sometimes our unconscious self is our friend, and sometimes it's our foe. It's where we're blocked. But we need our unconscious self. We need all of those wisdom places, not wisdom places, but experience and learning that we got from the experiences, taking that experience into your heart that creates the knowing and the wisdom. Do you see what I mean? We can't go one without the other, but sometimes on a lazy day, the unconscious will take over. We do autopilot. And I get that. We all need to do that at times. But just know that when we're on autopilot, we're not in our aware self. We may go down the wrong road. We may go down that back alley where, or back into that relationship, or back into that rabbit hole that we fell into before, because our unconscious self only knows the pathway to the rabbit hole. And so let's kind of get more aware. So it's with all these changes happening in 2024 and all these things that we see. What have we seen? A solar eclipse. We've seen, I don't know how many solar flares that have been infecting people. As I talk about to people and hear what their experience, especially the sensitive people, kind of like, I'm kind of sensitive, I'm feeling it. I'll have days of total exhaustion. Like, what is going on here? And then all of you who, you don't have to be sensitive to be exhausted, but and then if you listen to the news and you watch the world weather or the world's political situation and the war, it really takes its toll. And if we're not working within our aware self, we become exhausted, we become discouraged, and we really, because there's like a grease slide going down that rabbit hole when we pay attention to these outside things and decide this is where life is. Life is in here, guys. Life is in your heart. Life is connected to your intuition and your higher self. And this is not going to a fairyland. This is not checking out of life. This is actually when we go from our unconscious self and all of those potholes, rabbit holes, and move into our aware self. This is when we're in our power. And we're not checking out when we're in our power. We're actually getting more ingrained and we're getting more traction in the present moment. And we're really, that's when we really start creating things to happen for ourselves. And when we create things to happen for ourselves, we're vibrating out to everyone around us and either inspiring them or their lives get better because we're not checked out anymore. And this is how our intuition can grow. And this is how spirit can reach us and let us know that we're not alone. It's not a perfect connection with the voices of angels singing and everything makes sense and now no bad will ever happen to you. That's not what it is. It's about embracing your life and taking aware steps through your life. Remember the saying, chop wood, carry water, you become enlightened. Then you go back and chop wood and carry water, but with enlightenment. We're not leaving our lives as we become more aware of ourselves and have a more soul, spiritual based life. We're actually able to do more in our lives and have a sense of well-being and have the creativity grow. We see more choices. We see how we can use tools in different ways. And this is really, really worth it. We're in a we're always in a time of transition. I can't think of when we're not going through all of history, when we were not learning and growing and moving in so many different directions. But where the stakes are, as high as they're going to be for us in our lives right now, we may as well engage in the present moment with our aware self that leads to our intuition, that leads to our soul. And then we can really start to create some amazing solutions and that begin to create a new thought form, new thought processes that will match the change that's needed in the world, instead of going along with what's happening, knowing that there needs to be a change and you don't know what to do about it. That's the unconscious working. And I'm inviting you now that spring is here, or even if you're listening to this in the middle of fall, it doesn't matter, that it's your time to become aware and become awake and begin to blossom. And I really want to invite you to give it a try. And remember that pathway to soul power living is so simple. It starts by feeling your feelings, nurturing yourself, paying attention to yourself so that you could hear that small voice inside, which is a very powerful, important part of yourself. So I want to wish you good journeys, good traveling. And I want you to embrace the courage of feeling how you're feeling and learning who you are and walking forward and making a difference in your world, in your life, and letting it vibrate out to make a difference in everybody else's life. You're not here to change anyone. You're here to be happy. You're here to feel good. You're here to have a sense of yourself, and you're here to be creative, whatever that means for you. So let's find out what that is. And if I can help you in any way, that's what I do for my job, is to help people hear their souls. And you can reach me at angelscapes.net. And you can find me on Facebook, Nancy of Angelscapes. Find me on Instagram, Nancy of Angelscapes, and I will love to hear your story.
Thank you for joining the Angelscapes podcast. We hope you've gained new insights and inspiration for your journey to uncover and access your soul's power. For more information and a deeper dive into finding clarity in your life, go to angelscapes.com. Remember to subscribe so you can be part of the discussion. It may just change your life. See you next time.